Welcome back and Happy New Year. I hope you've had a great start to your year so far because I am about to ruin it. Over the holidays, I had a lot of downtime and I was back home, so I was very nostalgic. And I was thinking back to a bunch of movies that came out when I was a lot younger. One of the things that popped into my head over and over again is this movie, Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunt. I'd never seen it before, I didn't know anything about it, but I remember it being advertised a ton when I was in middle school. It was right in that era where it seemed that every movie that came out was a dark, gritty action take on a classic story. Because The Dark Knight had come out in 2008 and did really well, and then every movie studio on earth was like, we gotta do that! We gotta do that! We gotta make Humpty Dumpty a horror movie! In case you're wondering, the Humpty Dumpty horror movies are real, but I am too scared, so I will not be watching them. I mean, look at him, he's horrifying.
I had someone tell me I fell off, ooh, I needed that.
So I decided I would watch this movie, and I think it was a really great use of 1.5 hours, especially if you wanted that 1.5 hours to feel like 7. This movie was originally distributed by Paramount, so it's by no means an indie movie. It had a budget of like $50 million, which for 2012 is even more money. Like, calculating with inflation, that's probably like $5,000 million. Classic inflation joke. But that chunk of change was probably worth it because the movie did get a 16% on Rotten Tomatoes. I am holding out hope that critics were wrong on this though, because as we all know, Hansel and Gretel are some of the most beloved characters you could possibly have. And I know what happened in their story. Do you know what happened? Could you tell me what happened in their story? I'm just interested if you know. At the beginning of the movie, a young Hansel and Gretel come across a candy house in the woods, just like in the fairy tale. And I want to point your attention to this house because it is one of the grossest houses I have ever seen. They could not have made that door look more like a sphincter if they tried. And don't even get me started on the icing on the roof, if that is what that is, because it's not what it looks like. This is not a building that children should be allowed near. So just like in the fairy tale, the kids start eating the house because it's made of candy and they're kids and they just can't resist. But again, I'm really stuck on how gross this house looks. I also like candy, but if I saw a house that looks like this, I wouldn't want to touch it. Are these kids just trying to take a bite out of every house they see, no matter what it looks like? Just like ripping bricks and wood off of their neighbor's house and chopping into it? And furthermore, just like in the fairy tale, the witch catches them eating the house and brings them inside and forces them to eat candy while she gets ready to eat them. Which honestly is kind of a beautiful circle of life when you think about it. In this scene, they also established that Hansel and Gretel happen to be immune to witch magic, which is why they can kill this witch in her own home and then do a montage of them growing up and murdering countless witches. And just knowing how like actual witch hunts went in real life, even though magic is real in this universe, I do think that 90% of the people they killed in this montage were probably innocent. And it also seems like what they're doing isn't that helpful. They're just kind of like on a killing spree. The town was saved by Hansel and Gretel, yes! It's still on fire, and we lost everything, but we have a pile of dead witches, so that's awesome.
I hereby accuse this woman of craft of witchery.
This guy's name is Berenger. He's one of the villains of this story, and he hates witches, but in an evil way. Not in the way that Hansel and Gretel hate witches. This is a world where everybody hates witches and everyone is on the witch hunt. But when this guy does it, we're supposed to be like, whoa, dude, okay, that's a little too far. That being said, he's probably pretty evil because this woman doesn't even look like a witch. She's just like a person. And witches in this universe seem to have a pretty distinct visual style.
I had someone tell me I fell off.
But Berenger doesn't care, all right? He's evil. He's wearing all black. He has a little mustache. He's a bad guy. Thankfully, though, Gretel and Jeremy Renner show up just in time to save the day.
Let the girl go, or I'm gonna blow your sheriff's brains all over these fucking hillbillies.
Whoa! They're so cool! Gretel just said the F word. She doesn't do that in the fairy tale. Oh my god, Hansel has a gun! That's awesome!
Check her.
What's your name?
When a woman truly deals in witchcraft, she cannot hide it.
Stop doing that. Gretel's like, check her, and Jeremy Renner goes over and is like, what's your name? Is your name Elphaba? That's a witch name.
You can't just come
Any
here.
man with half a brain could see that she was not a witch.
Why do Hansel and Gretel have American accents? Everyone else in this movie has like a British or like kind of like vaguely European accent, except for the two protagonists.
My name is Gretel.
When a woman truly deals in witchcraft...
That's another big gripe I have with this movie, is that it feels like they think audiences are really stupid. Everything needs to be way over the top and super heavy-handed, and there is no way the audience could identify with a main character who had an accent, okay? That's crazy. We also get a totally unnecessary scene where they're just doing crazy witch killing. It has absolutely nothing to do with the plot, and they just end up murdering a witch, which sort of establishes that the protagonists of this movie are bloodthirstier than the witches themselves. Not to defend the witches, right? But we have seen one witch do something bad one time when she tried to eat them. On the other hand, Hansel and Gretel have been committing atrocities since they were 12 years old.
That witch we found was a dead end, Mayor. No trace of any kids, I'm sorry.
Hansel and Gretel came to this town because a ton of kids have gone missing in witch-related incidents. But Berenger hates that they're there because he doesn't want them to get credit for beating the witches. He wants to do it. And when Hansel and Gretel go out to hunt witches at night, Berenger puts together a posse to track them down and then beat them to it.
Better be fast before our mayor's witch hunters rob this town blind.
There's a really brief clip where one of the guys who Berenger hires yells at a dog, just to really establish that these are mean guys, I guess. Movies don't normally have to establish this much that villains are bad. Like, they don't spend the first 5 minutes of Star Wars showing Darth Vader screaming at an Ewok to let you know that he's a bad guy. They don't need to do that because Darth Vader is already wearing all black and he has a funny little mustache. Also not 100% sure why the trackers are even in the movie because they all get murdered by a witch in the next scene.
Father and 3 children attacked.
Uh-oh.
That's weird.
It is strange,
Yeah.
okay. Then again, we hunt witches for a living. What's normal, really?
Shouldn't that be normal to you? This is a world where witches are very real. It feels weird that Jeremy Renner is looking to camera and being like, what a weird world, huh? Witches are real? And we hunt them? That's strange.
Jeep Wrangler.
I think I'm just having a hard time buying into this movie. The writing is super bad. None of the characters are relatable. Like, it's barely even a story.
On this last one, we believe a troll was involved.
Wait, holy shit, this movie has trolls? We then get introduced to the actual villains of this movie, who are 3 witch sisters. These 3 are trying to come up with a potion that will make them immune to fire so that villagers wouldn't be able to burn them. And that's why they've stolen all the kids in town, is because they need kids to make that potion.
We will be invincible.
Which is all well and good, except for that's not the only way to kill a witch. Spoiler alert, in this movie, Hansel and Gretel kill like 40 witches, and almost all of them they just shot with a gun. So do they also have a potion that makes them immune to being shot with a gun? Do these witches have a chug jug? So Hansel and Gretel go to kidnap one of the witches and interrogate her about the potion.
You move, you die.
And for a movie that really wants you to think it's really cool, these are some of the corniest action sequences I have ever seen. No hate to Twilight here, but this whole fight looks like something out of Twilight.
You better hold on tight, Spider Monkey.
So Hansel and Gretel capture this witch, but oh no, her 2 sisters are magic and track her down to the town they took her to, and then attack the town and like kill everyone. And I hate to say it, but that kind of makes me think that maybe the town would have been better off if Berenger was the one in charge of catching the witches. But yeah, the witches come and they invade the town, they burn everything, they kill everybody. It's a lot like that newspaper earlier. By this movie's logic, these witches should be regarded as heroes. And they fully defeat Hansel and Gretel. Hansel gets dragged off on a witch's broom, Gretel gets thrown out of a window, and instead of finishing either of them off, the witches just let them live. 2 characters that just want to stop what the villains are doing are just left alive by the villains so that the movie can continue for another 45 minutes. When Gretel is knocked out, she's taken to safety by this guy who's a big fan of her and her brother.
Benjamin Walsler, I'm really quite a fan of your work.
And we get a little backstory on the witches in this town.
Who was she, the witch who attacked us?
I don't know.
I don't know who she is, and there's no way of knowing. Anyway, it's time to turn to the first page of this big book of witches. Hansel, on the other hand, is rescued by his love interest. They go to skinny dip in a little pond, and he's such a dork about it. Aren't you supposed to be like a crazy, badass witch hunter who gets the job done or whatever? But then you see one person naked and are all of a sudden like a 1950s schoolboy? Gee willikers, look at that keister. Meanwhile, we also find out that the troll is actually a good guy because he helps Gretel find Hansel, which honestly I am pretty into. That's one of the few redeeming qualities of this movie, is that troll just gets to have a cool arc. Feels weird they didn't do that for any of the other characters, but still. Once they have each other again, Gretel and Hansel go and they find an old witch's lair underneath this old decrepit house, and it turns out this is actually their house from when they were kids.
This is our house.
Yeah.
This is where we grew up.
Which I don't know if I believe because I don't see any bite marks in the walls. And then the main evil witch shows up to reveal that their mother was actually a great white witch.
But your mother, the most powerful white witch.
Which in this universe is like a good neutral witch. And that in order for the witches to make this immunity to fire potion, one of the ingredients they need is the heart of a great white witch.
The only thing left, the heart.
And apparently being a great white witch is genetic because they fully are just gonna cut out Gretel's heart. So they capture Gretel, they take her to this ritual site, and hundreds of witches are showing up. It's a big witch party, and why is one of them naked? I feel like they're not gonna address that, but in the background, one of the witches is naked. And just when it seems like all hope is lost, Jeremy Renner stands up to do the one thing no one expected.
If you let my sister and the children go now, I'll consider not killing each and every one of you.
He asks them. He just kind of asks them and vaguely threatens them and hopes that they will give him his sister. And surprisingly, they don't.
Finish it. Yes.
Please work.
It's a gun, man. I think it's gonna work. You have already shot multiple witches in this movie. You know it's gonna work. And they haven't made the Chug Jug potion yet, so they don't have their shields up. The rest of this fight is so dumb. Hansel's love interest is manning a machine gun just mowing down witches. Meanwhile, Hansel is shooting witches executioner style right in front of 20 kids. The only moment that feels like it even matters in this whole scene is when the troll is like, no, I'm not gonna serve the evil witches anymore. I'm gonna help Gretel escape. And then he is immediately killed by the evil witches. I'll admit it, the first time I saw this, I was pretty upset. Really bummed out that the troll died. We learned his name a little bit ago. It's Edward.
Edward.
R.I.P. my man Edward. Then, after some of the worst green screen $50 million can buy, we get a final scene where Hansel and Gretel keep fighting the witches in a different location. And in this scene, the witch puts a knife to the fanboy's throat and uses him as a shield, and Hansel just decides, whatever, and shoots the kid. So the bullet goes through him and hits the witch. Excellent strategic play, Mr. Renner. Wound one of your allies. That'll show her. Turns out this location they're at is the gingerbread house that their whole journey started in, and it's here that they finally defeat the big bad witch. Classic Hansel and Gretel moment. And then the movie ends. Hansel and Gretel did not change as characters, they did not learn anything, but god damn it, they looked cool as hell the entire time. And then for some reason, they try to tease a sequel in the credits, even though that's ridiculous. There's no way this movie made money. Oh, it made $226 million? It quadrupled its budget? And they're planning a sequel? That's awesome. Thanks again for sticking around to the end of the video. I really appreciate that because you didn't have to do that. That's so nice of you. While you're here, feel free to leave a comment letting me know what you thought about this movie and if there are any other sick, twisted movies like this that I should take a look at. Bye!